We were going down the trail, and all of a sudden, to the right of me, the trees just started shaking. All these saplings. We look up there, and all I saw was the conical head, the huge shoulders, shadow in the trees. When I got back down to my house, I went up to my best friend's house who lived right up the street. I go up to tell my best friend, I'm like, we just saw a Bigfoot.
You're listening to the Cryptid Creatures Show with Brian and Todd. If you're enjoying the show or would like to submit an encounter, visit our website at www.cryptidcreatures.net, or you can email us at info@cryptidcreatures.co. Now back to the show. Welcome back to the Cryptid Creatures Show. This is Brian, and with me as always is my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? How you doing today?
Fantastic.
As you know, we're going to bring a friend on. John Turley's coming on today to talk about his Bigfoot encounter.
Yeah, we met John a couple times at CryptidCon.
We did. We didn't know he had a Bigfoot encounter until last year.
No, we did not.
Yeah. Recent show. So we're like, oh my gosh, we got to get you on the show.
Yeah.
So we're going to see what he saw and what happened.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear it. It should be good.
Hey, John.
Morning, John.
How you doing today?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
All right. You ready to get started?
Sure am.
All right.
My story started, obviously, I'm a little bit aged. So, grew up in the 70s.
Well, so did we.
Yeah. I think we're all around the same same age. So, I always, when I see Bigfooters that are our age, I'm like, well, I always feel like we have the same backgrounds, but sometimes we don't. And I found that out. Actually, I found that out at CryptidCon. I was talking to somebody and they were like, yeah, I never watched that.
Oh, really?
And I was like, watch
Wow.
the $6 million man? What?
Right.
You never watched that.
That's right. That's how we met a couple years ago, actually.
That's
We
right.
met you guys at the CryptidCon. And
That's right.
Yeah.
both years, and didn't realize you'd had an encounter till recently, and we wanted to get you on and talk about that, and your store that you have too, Crowtown Squatchers, right?
Yeah, that's our store. We're traveling all over the place. We'll be at well, I'll go over that later. But,
Sure.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after the.
But yeah, so that we had that same kind of background when it comes to watching Bigfoot in the 70s show. The reason I say that, and I'll elaborate on that later, a lot of the reasons that I have seen a lot of when people are doing the podcast and stuff, and I was asked early on when we started Crowtown Squatchers, the first time we went to any conference was at OBC, and I had several people asking me about have you ever had any encounters? Well, I had my first encounter when I was in 1979. I've traced it back. It was either 79 or 80, so I'm just saying 79 for some sort of. I'm pretty sure it was 79. So,
Okay.
After I had my encounter, of course, there was I got a lot of derision, and the first person I told just laughed in my face. And it was right after it happened. I mean, it was, after we got out of the woods. So a friend of mine and I, he was about 4 years older than I am. So we were on a big superhero kick at the time. And we would, in town, it's right outside of town is this property owned by this guy. His name was we called him Old Man McCoy. And Old Man McCoy was a grumpy old guy who would drive around in this old beat up vehicle, and he'd chase you off his property. So part of it, the fun was going up there. There was ponds up there. We would go up there and fish. It was a lot closer than going to the river. And he owned all this property on the east side of town. And so as soon as you got to the hill, which is about 3 blocks above where I went to elementary school, it was all woods all the way back through there. So we would go up there, and there was 3 ponds up there, and we'd go fishing. So and part of the fun was eluding him, because he would, it wasn't just he would chase you off. He would shoot at you with rock salt. He would load up his, I don't know if it was a 12 gauge or 410 or whatever it was. He would load it up with rock salt and shoot at you. And he got a couple of people. I never got hit. So I know some people that did, and they told me it was not a fun experience. So that's a little intro into what we were doing. So we were going up on the hill that day. We weren't fishing. We were just up there kind of for adventure, just to have fun. So me and my friend are walking down a 2-track, which is just, a trail that somebody used to use for a vehicle and is kind of overgrown. And when we were going down the trail, and all of a sudden to the right of me, like the way I remember it was the trees just started shaking. All these saplings up on the hill was right here. So all these saplings just start shaking, and we look up there, and all I saw was the conical head, the huge shoulders. I didn't see hair. I don't know what color it was. I didn't see eyes. I didn't see face. All I saw was that shadow in the trees. And obviously we were not sticking around to take pictures or anything. We didn't have a camera, but so our immediate, our decision was to turn around and get the heck out of there. So we bolted back down the track. But when we probably got about 50 yards down the track, we jumped off to the side, and my friend and I decided, let's string. We had, like I told you before, we were budding superheroes. So we had somewhat of a utility belt with us. We did have some fishing string and some knives with us. So we ran the fishing string across the trail. I got on one side, he got on the other, and we were going to trip this thing when it came down the trail and then fall on it with our knives. That was our great plan.
Yeah, that's a great plan.
Yeah. So, luckily, nothing came back down the trail at us. So, we decided to get off the hill that day. That was enough exploring for us. And this is when I got back down to my house, I went up to my best friend's house who lived right up the street. We had a bunch of kids that lived on our street. I go up to tell my best friend, I'm like, we just saw a Bigfoot. And he just laughed in my face. And I was kidded about this all through childhood, all up and even, most people didn't want to hear the story, but they knew that I had seen one. So I got kidded a lot for being a person who saw Bigfoot, and I was kind of a little bit crazy for that. And I was a little bit crazy anyways, but.
Where did this happen at, John? Was this Ohio?
Yeah, this is in Coshocton in Ohio, where I live, right here in my hometown. Like I said, I was kidded about it the whole time. And even when we got in, and this makes the next part, and I think I told you guys in my little preview that I sent you, this kind of goes into the next thing that happened, which was several years later. We were about 2 miles east more of where that original sighting was. So this is out in the same, if you were to take a drone, you could go up over this hill and go straight east, and you would be basically in this valley where we were at. And so there was 4 of us that time. There was 2 cars. We were sitting out there. It was getting around dusk, and we were out there having a couple of beers, nothing major. And we started hearing this noise in the back of the valley. And this, I guess I should, this was in fall of 1987. And we start hearing these noises in the back of the valley, and it's weird. It's almost like a moan, howl kind of thing. And at first, like I said, it started right in the back of the valley, and we were just, what is that? What the heck is going on back there? And so then it quit, and then we didn't think much of it, and then it started again, and it's moving clockwise as the valley on the valley ring, and then whatever it was stayed up in the tree line, and that's always. That was what was always, I thought, was so weird about this. Like, if it's a sick animal or something like that, you would think it wouldn't care where it was at. It would come out of the trees but this, whatever it was, stayed up in the tree line, and it was getting close to dusk. So, when you have basically a grassy field that goes up the hill and just then the tree line starts, I mean, it's dark up there. And so this thing just kept moving clockwise and giving these howls about every 10 minutes or so, maybe 10, 15 minutes. It did it basically like at 12 o'clock, then at 2 o'clock. Then it got down here, and it was funny because we were all like, we were kind of spread out when we started sitting there talking. And then as this thing was moaning and making its noise, we kind of tightened up a little bit. So we were at the end, we were like, all four of us were like basically almost standing on top of each other, and it let out a hoop up right up above us. And we sprinted into the cars that we came in and zoomed back to the high school parking lot, because we all hung out at the high school. Couldn't wait to get out of school, but we always hung out in the high school parking lot because that's where everybody met up. And we zoomed back it took us about 3 minutes or so to get back because it's not that far out of town as you go if you're driving that fast, for one thing. And the high school's like right on the edge of town. So we jumped out of the cars. We were like, what in the heck was that? We went out that weekend, and we went out that weekend with a friend of mine because I had told him about it. And the word around school was that these guys, this friend that I talked to, him and 3 of our other friends had a sighting. They had a road crossing. They reported that to the sheriff. So that was in the newspaper. That was pretty well documented just a couple weeks before that. So we all went out there. I remember it was a rainy, miserable day. We went out looking for tracks and things like that. That was actually the first time I ever went squatching, and we didn't find anything, but it was real interesting too. So like I said, this is 1987. So if you're familiar with Don Keating, and he's like the guru of Ohio Bigfooting, this is about the time he started having the meetings in Newcomerstown, which is 20 minutes away from us to the east. And so there was actually, I remember there being, Don had like signs up. Like if you've had any sightings or anything like that, you would call him and things, report those sightings. So all that stuff was happening all of this, it was just really strange that whole weekend. And for those sightings to happen in that area, it was just really odd. And as I'm a licensed social worker, so I deal with kids that have trauma and things like that. I work a lot with children. So I'm kind of interested in how, sometimes what we remember as kids is not the way things happen. So I went, I was at the fair, the county fair here it was 2018. And the friend that I had the sighting with was standing out in the fairway thing, and I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go over and ask him. I didn't have a Bigfoot shirt on. We had not started, advertising or anything on social media, so no one knew I was into Bigfoot or anything. So I went out and asked him. I said, do you remember that day we were up on Old Man McCoy's Hill? And he didn't even bat an eyelash. He said it was a Bigfoot, John. I mean, it just floored me. To have that kind of validation. Like I said, he was a little older than I was. So, for him to just say that without any preamble was, I felt really good. I felt good about it. It was like, okay, so I know that's And I've explored that, remembering all those times when I was getting razzed about, oh, John, he's the Bigfoot. He likes Bigfoot. He thinks he saw one and all that stuff. So, and then the other 4 that was with me when we were in high school, I talked to a friend of mine recently, and he does know I'm into Bigfoot. And I was like, do you remember that day we were out there in the valley? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, do you remember, what do you think that was? And he goes, you're the Bigfoot guy. You tell me. And I'm like, I to this day, I don't know. But that whole area, as you go out farther from where we were in that valley, if you keep going east from Coshocton and you start heading over towards, what Don coined the phrase, the Sasquatch Triangle, and you get closer to Wills Creek and Guernsey County where Salt Fork is, there's even more stuff out there. And it's funny because we went out, I got to do a bucket list thing, was to go out squatching with Don Keating. And I was able to do that. We went out one day, me and him and Dave Wickham and a few other people. And we went out to these old strip mine ponds where we spent a whole lot of our high school lives out there partying. Like Don, it was so funny because Don asked me, he goes, you ever been out here before? I said, Don, I spent probably, 4 years between 17 and 21. I was probably out here every night. Slept on the ground over there and not camping either, So it was funny because Dave, he's Dave Wickham Taters. He's like, yeah, those Bigfoots are probably out here watching you. Like, look at these crazy people, But there's been sightings out there. There's still to this day. Now it's all blocked off, so you can't drive a car back in there. The only way back in there is if you hike in or if you've got an off-road vehicle. So it's really interesting because, like I said, that whole range, and there's 2 state routes that run down through that whole wooded area, and also Mary Stuckham's graveyard's out there. Well, it's the Stuckham family graveyard, but that's our local, that's our most well-known local story, paranormal story, and that's the Stuckham's graveyard. So Mary is buried out there. She was supposedly a witch, and her children kept dying, and after she was hung, and then her children kept dying, and so they dug her body up, cut her head off.
How many children did she have?
She had, if I remember correctly, it was like 9. It was 7 or 9, and they some of them died mysteriously, and they blamed the husband at first. So the husband was hung. Well, Mary got mad. I mean, this is the story, and the children kept dying. So then they hung Mary. And then after Mary was hung, the children still kept dying. And so therefore they dug her up, cut her head off, buried the head on one side of the road, buried the body back on the other. And supposedly if you go out there on the full moon, she will come up and she goes, looks for her head.
Okay.
And her tombstone is in the graveyard. It's really it's creepy. And we've been out there and weird things have happened. And it's just, I'm not saying paranormal, but we went out there the one night and our car literally would not start. And this thunderstorm was moving in. It was so 80s horror movie tropes. I thought it was so meta. It was like, I was sitting in the back seat of the car. I was like, this can't be happening, man. This is way over the top.
Awesome.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah, I was looking on the map there. You guys are right on the edge or pretty much into the Appalachian Mountain area there. And Ohio has been known for it's a huge state for Bigfoot sightings,
Yeah, it is.
When you guys saw the first sighting that you had, how far away do you think this thing was from you guys?
It was not very far away at all. I mean, it was, if I remember correctly, I'm at the most, maybe 25 feet. And like I said, it was on a slope. So distance is, kind of wonky, but that's what I want to say. 20, it might have even been a little closer than that.
You have the high ground.
Yeah, he had the high ground. So,
Did you notice any smell?
Well, that's the thing is I can't remember a smell, and you would think that would be something that really would stick out if, but you hear stories both ways about sometimes there's a smell, sometimes there's not, but I don't remember. And I would think that because kids usually do remember smells pretty well. That's one of the things that are olfactory, that's really big when we remember stuff. That's why we always think about grandma's house and things like that. But I don't recall smelling anything. I've thought about it over the years, and just the normal smells of the forest, really.
So this was in the morning, afternoon?
It would have been in early afternoon.
So you had pretty good sunlight, so you could see pretty well.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of, there's a lot of canopy there where we were at. So it was sunny, but you've been in the woods when it's like that. There's a bit of shadow in there already.
Sure.
So, but there was still, pretty good amount of light.
Could you estimate how tall you thought this thing was?
I would say at least 7 feet. It was pretty huge to me. Obviously, I was a lot smaller then. So it was gigantic to a little guy, but that would be my rough estimate. I just recall how huge it was. I talked to Doug Waller about this not too long ago, and he asked me a really interesting question, and he said, and I just forgot it.
Well, while you're trying to remember that,
it'll come to you.
So between the time you saw the first creature and then you had your experience with your friends, did you kind of just put Bigfoot out of your mind, or did you kind of go looking for him anymore? Or did you think about it? Were you into it at all, or what?
We still went back up on the hill sporadically, but I don't remember going back up there that much after that. I was still into that reminded me what Doug had asked me, and he asked me if I knew what it was when I saw it. And like I said, that was kind of what being a child of the 70s to me, I'll just say the word nerd, because that's what I felt like it was, sort of. I was always, in search of, I grew up my mom's a big Trekkie. So, we watched Star Trek, and In Search of, it was on, Star Trek was on at 6, and In Search of was on, I still remember, In Search of was on at 7. And then Battlestar Galactica was on at 8. So,
used to watch all those.
That was Sunday nights,
Sunday.
Right? Yeah, Sunday nights.
I remember that.
That was it. It was the greatest, and then of course the $6 Million Man, Bigfoot and Wild Boy was on Saturday mornings. Bigfoot was in the zeitgeist. It was. It was.
It was. Yeah, you're right. It was out there probably more than it is. Well, now, other than the documentaries and stuff now, it's not really in the mainstream TV shows anymore. It used to be a lot back then.
Yeah,
and there was, and if I've got one of the books from elementary school, the Bigfoot books. There was 2 of them that I remember. I'm still trying to track down that other one. But I have the one, and I'm like, I remember reading this, in elementary school. So the question that Doug asked me was, did you know what it was when you saw it? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I knew exactly what it was when I saw it. I knew it was a Sasquatch. I did not know. And I think it was that book, to be honest, because I did not know at the time. I was like, Bigfoots are in Ohio. But I remember, because this number has always stuck in my head, and I remember it's got to be in that book somewhere. There had been 8 sightings of Bigfoot in Ohio at that time. And maybe that was in the 70s or something, but I remember that number they had the state of Ohio and it had 8 in it. It was like Bigfoot sightings. And it's funny to look at that. I would love to find that map again. I'm going to look for it.
Yeah.
And
you can find that.
Like 8 sightings in Ohio. And there was only a few states back then, obviously Washington and Oregon and California and a few other places. And I think it had
also the reported ones. back then, not a lot of people were coming forward.
Yeah. And it's fun. Like I said, now you see that map and it's like there's every state, there's a Bigfoot site. Yeah. At least one, and lots more now, for one reason or another. But that was the thing, like I said, that stuck out was, I knew what it was when I saw it. And I was really excited because it was like, I saw a Bigfoot, and that's, it goes back to me telling people about it, and they just immediately just shoot you down. So it's not something I talked about. Even when I got asked, when I started going to Bigfoot conference, the first time I went to a Bigfoot conference was Creature Weekend, which was they had at Salt Fork, and it was right after the Ohio Bigfoot conference. The one year, I think it was in 2016 was the first time we went, and maybe 2015. But they used to have 3 that year. They had 3 conferences. They had OBC, and then Don Keating had one, and then they had Creature Weekend. And even then, I didn't like to talk about it because it was. You get tired of people looking at you like that. I tell people and they're just like, yeah, sure, John.
Right.
And then I remember the second one, people always look at me and they go, yeah, you guys were drinking. So I'm in full disclosure, I am a recovered alcoholic. I've been sober now for almost 13 years. I did drink a lot, but not back in 1987.
Congrats.
Thank you. So a couple of beers was not much of anything back then. And honestly, one of the reasons I wanted to go to the Bigfoot conference to begin with is if you're familiar with an AA meeting, it's like, hey, I'm John, I'm an alcoholic. This is my story. It was very similar to me. I mean, that was what endeared me to going to the Bigfoot conferences, was like, hey, I could probably go here and tell my story and people are going to go, hey, I had a similar experience. Not sure, John, you're wacky. Mm-hmm. So, and it was really cool to be able to have that experience at the Bigfoot conference, and not just have people, they want you to come and talk to them about it. And this is another thing I talked to about with Doug Waller about. Maybe this will actually have somebody might come, somebody who felt like I did, somebody who feels like a lot of people that have experiences maybe at the same time even, or about that time period, will come forward and go, you know what? That's weird because this happened to me around that time in the same area. And I just didn't want to talk about it. And I have that a lot because at my office, I'm a social worker. So I talk to people that, my client ages range from 3 to 77. So wow. I have some Bigfoot signs in my office, like Squatch Crossing and things like that. And people are like, you like Bigfoot? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty interested in it. And we do a lot of stuff. And I have got so many stories from people in my office, or even out on, I've been at the grocery store and I got a Bigfoot t-shirt on. People turn around in line and go, you believe in Bigfoot? And I'm like, yeah, this happened to me one time. It makes the line at Walmart go a lot faster when people are and it's as simple sometimes as they're taking out the garbage, or they lived on a farm and they used to see, Dad would tell them, don't go down there in that holler, after dark or anything like that. The one that really sticks out is I worked with one of my coworkers. She's moved on to different stuff now, but she's very religious, and she used to give me a hard time about it. She was just like, John, Bigfoot's not real, and she's very nice about it. Mm-hmm. But her brother moved into a house out in the country, and I want to say it's over in Guernsey County, and she came to me the day, this thing happened. She said something came up, and slapped the side of her brother's house. And she said it shook the whole house. And they went out and looked, and it had dented the aluminum siding was dented where it hit, and it was way up. And I'm just like, this is early on in I did not know, I was like, I should have now I would have been like, I'm going to your brother's house. I'll see you in a little bit. I want to go, get my tape measure and measure all this stuff and see,
Mm-hmm.
But that one right there was like one of those, you go, mwah. Because people just, people are so adamant about it not being real, or it's whatever. But my point is, there's just, and I guess I could quote Shakespeare, there are stranger things in heaven and earth. Horatio, I always love saying that, because just weird stuff happens, and there's no good explanation for them sometimes. And I don't know exactly what all that stuff is, but
I don't think anybody does, do they? I mean,
no. Mm-mm. Again, like I've said before, this is all everybody's own opinion, and nobody knows for sure what's going on out there, but I believe they do exist. So
yeah, even though not seeing one, I mean, we've heard so many encounters. Half of the people cannot be lying. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it's my wife had foot surgery. This was back in 2016, and I was thinking about this morning, because this one slips my mind. She got foot surgery and spent the whole winter in a wheelchair, and it was a pain in the butt. I mean, because we were actually living in the ground floor I was in charge of recovery housing, so I had tenants basically upstairs, people trying to get clean and sober. And we were living downstairs. It was a very nice apartment. It was a pain for her in the wheelchair. And finally in the spring, she was doing a lot better. And the doctor was like, you need to, ditch the wheelchair, get out and start walking. So my wife picked Morgan's Knob Trail. She's like, let's go to Salt Fork. And it was like the first really nice weekend. And it was, it was just beautiful out. And so we go out to Morgan's Knob. There's nobody out there. And if you've ever been on Morgan's Knob Trail, you go in through, it looks like a portal almost. I mean, it's like the way that pine trees are, it's like this. And you go in there, and then you're in this pine, like they've got the pine trees, so they're interlocking branches. It's surreal when you're under there, because if it's raining, it doesn't rain in there. Like you'll get a little wet from the drips, but it doesn't rain in there. And it's cool. It's so much cooler. Like it's 90 degrees out in the sun, and you walk in there, it's like going into air conditioning. It is so cool. And you can see like the way they planted the trees kind of gives you a line of sight down through the trees. And it's just, I mean, it's almost like Boggy Creek looking, you think about that movie, and it's just like you go in there. And that's where a couple of if you watch the old Monster Quest episodes, there's a couple of them where these people were in. I remember the Finding Bigfoot, when they went to Salt Fork, the guy that had the Bigfoot was or it was supposedly a Bigfoot. I believe they debunked that after a couple of years, but shaking the tree, it was right on the edge of that pine area. So when you walk through the pines, it's not even maybe an eighth of a mile, if that. You open up into, just some regular old, what do you call woods. And there's a track that goes up a hill, and it's mostly, gravel. And this track it's part of the trail, but it's also, when it rains, I mean, it just turns into a quagmire. But, it's got gravel and sand and all kinds of, strata in there. So we come out of the pine trees and we start to go up the trail. And right when we get up just, 20 feet, my wife goes, wait a minute, my shoe's untied. I got to tie my shoe. So she's been down tying her shoe, and I'm just standing there looking around, and I'm not looking for anything. I'm just happy we're out in the woods. I'm not even really looking for it. I look down, and there, plain as day, across the trail is a footprint. And I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, because this is how, I mean, it was so exciting at the time. I was just like, what? I mean, it looked like a footprint to me. So I wear size 14 shoes, and I could put my foot inside of that, and you could still see the toes.
Wow. And
the heel was, I mean, it was enormous. I mean, I don't know if it was, and this is the part that kind of made me leery, because there was only one. There was one. It was right in the middle of the trail. Like, if it was a walking creature, it would have walked off this side, which is about 3 foot high bank, stepped in the middle, and then up on the other side, which was again a bank. Now, on the other side, it would have been hard to tell, but up on this side is where the pine trees are. There should have been some kind of something, but right there, it was right in the middle. But it was, I just looked down and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And it was enormous. I mean, a gigantic footprint. Maybe,
unless it was at a full run and just jumped.
It could have been. It's very possible. But if that was, I mean, if it just blew my mind. And when I got back, we walked up the trail, and I've got pictures on my phone, and I outlined it with yellow so you could see it, and which I probably shouldn't have done, but it's hard to see. It was hard to see without some kind of, and I didn't put anything down for scale, like I said, because my mind was just,
right.
It's funny because it reminds me, we went to, we were at Smoky Mountain Bigfoot conference last year. We're standing out front.
Oh, I want to go to that one.
We're going again this year, and it was awesome. One of the best conferences I've been to. It was a blast. But we're standing out front, me and my wife, and we're trying to figure out, it's Saturday morning, the day of the conference, and we're trying to figure out, are they going to open a front door for us to get in, to get to our vendor table? Or do we have to walk down the tunnel, around the building, and in through the loading dock, which I did not want to do because that's a freaking haul. So we get down, we're standing there, and I turned around. I was facing like down the hill because it's on a hill. I mean, it's on a big hill, and it's about halfway up this hill. So I'm standing looking down the hill, and I'm like, well, I turned around to tell my wife, well, I guess we got to walk down the tunnel. And on the other side of the conference center is a church. And out of this church parking lot walks this bear. And this ain't no tiny bear. This is the biggest black bear I've ever seen. I thought, I've got a phone in my pocket. I didn't get a picture of this bear because I'm going, blah, 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 blah. And my wife she said after the fact, she goes, I thought it was like somebody, one of the Bigfooters, like Russ or somebody was coming down the hill behind it, but she turned around and tried to get a picture of that bear, and he was just, across the street. He walked over to the Waffle House or whatever it is over there, the little diner that's right across the street, sniffed at the door a little bit, and then walked into the parking lot. Well, I was so, I say this because I was just so awestruck at the fact that this giant bear had walked. I mean, this thing was 4 foot high at the shoulder. I thought somebody was going to come along behind it, like a handler or something. That's what I was kind of waiting for. Like, I figured some guy in a clown suit or something. Here comes a circus bear. Now, this is just a big giant bear that walks around Gatlinburg and eats out of the trash cans. And then here in a little bit, you see the animal services guy come in, and, I don't know if they trick him into getting in the truck or, load him up with waffles or whatever. But, and I say that because, when you see stuff like that, you're just so like, and it just
right
in awe of
all the times people say, well, why didn't you get a picture? Well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Well, I didn't get a picture of a bear walking across the street in Gatlinburg. So, excuse me while my brain goes on complete, meltdown when I'm out in the woods and see something I can't comprehend.
See something like that. We're going to be in Salt Fork beginning of May, so that's good to know. We can check that trail out.
Yeah, I want to.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you guys coming to High Bigfoot Conference?
Yep.
Awesome.
You going to be there?
We'll be. Oh, yeah.
Awesome. We can go squatching together. What the hell?
Absolutely.
Heck yeah. We can go out there. You can show us that trail.
Yeah. Get a group of
For
us.
sure. I mean, it's one of the most, it's not too far from the lodge. It's one of the most popular trails. You can go up. When you follow the trail out, you can take it and go up to Morgan's Knob. I mean, that's the name of the trail. I don't know if it's the highest part in Salt Fork. I would guess it probably is. But it takes you, and at the end, it's a pretty nice little angle. I mean, it's like not 60 degrees, but it's pretty steep right there at the end. And then you get up there and you got a pretty good view, and you can see the lodge from there. And
nice.
But if you go the other way, it takes you down in this little ravine, and it's a climb to get out of there. They're both pretty strenuous, but fun. And it's really, I mean, you want to talk about squatchy. It's that whole area is squatchy. And then, of course, if you're going to be there, they have maps at the lodge. I would go get a map because you want to go down by Hosak's Cave too. And there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings down there.
I imagine that weekend's going to be so busy. The trails are probably going to be pretty packed, but maybe if we get out early enough in the morning, we can beat the crowds and see what's out there.
Yeah, that's what I would suggest.
We're going to try and get down there early Friday morning.
Yeah, if you can get down there early Friday morning, you'd be all right. I wouldn't bank on doing any hoops, calls, or wood knocks because everything you're going to hear is probably somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
I try to keep pretty quiet when I'm out in the woods. I don't like to make a lot of noise.
I do too.
I don't want to attract anything to me necessarily.
I mean, we make enough noise being clumsy monkeys.
Is that a 2-day event? Is Salt Fork 2 days or 1 day? I can't remember.
It's just 1 day.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it gives us time.
I wish it was a 2-day. It should be, to be honest.
That's what we were saying. It should be a 2-day. That'd be a good one.
If it was, it would be crazy.
Is it busier than the Crypticon?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
OBC is the big boy east of the Mississippi River.
Okay.
It's the biggest conference in the summer. Like I said, east of the Mississippi, there's nothing bigger than OBC.
I can't believe they're going 2 days
last year.
Yeah, tomorrow.
I think that's what he said.
It'll be awesome. I can't wait.
It's going to be great. All the people that you'll see, and everybody's, just super nice and having a good time. And it's just crazy. A lot of fun.
Good. So what else you got going down there in Ohio, John?
Well, 2 weeks after the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, we have the Sasquatch Triangle Conference here in Coshocton. And it is it's kind of a smaller venue kind of thing. It's an old, how do I want to put it? It's a researchers conference. And so, we're all basically, we have it at the Lake Park Pavilion. So the vendors, the speakers, and everybody we're all in the same building.
How do you say the town you're in? Coshocton?
Coshocton.
Okay.
Coshocton.
It's the only, there's a Cohocton in New York, but Coshocton is the only town in the United States with that name. So I don't know if we're proud of that. I'm kind of proud of that. Obviously where we live is an interesting place anyways, because Coshocton is an old Delaware word, and it's several different, I've heard several different meanings of it over the years. And when I was younger, I always thought it was land of the black bear, but that's another word for a town close or here in the county. So Coshocton actually means something to the effect of where the rivers meet. And
Okay.
so we're right here in our town, the Tuscarawas and the Wahunding rivers meet and form the Muskingum River, which is one of the main arteries of the Ohio River, which runs into the Ohio down at Marietta. So
You guys are close to the Woodbury Wildlife Preserve.
yeah, that's here. That's
What
here in Coshocton.
do you guys go into there and look around at all?
Yeah. That's we went out there. We have I have some good friends that go out there quite often. Shane Spencer, he's got a Facebook page for Ohio Woodbury Bigfoot, and we went out there. I went out there with him. He invited me to come out, and Dave Wickham again, a few others. We went out there, and this was in the daytime in the summer 2 years ago, and we got a couple of knocks, and we had the weirdest. I don't know what it was. I just don't. Me and Dave looked. There was three. We had two teams. There was me and Dave and another guy, and then Shane went with a couple other guys, and we had walkie talkies, but when you get, sometimes when you get down in those gullies and ravines, you can't hear them. You can't hear each other. It was funny because we just got up on top of this ravine, and we were circling back around to meet up with everybody. And we heard this noise, and if you've ever heard it, this is the way I heard it. Dave heard it. He thought it sounded like a giant, like a pig noise. So but really angry. And it was coming from the trees, like up in the trees on the other side of the ravine. And then if you've ever heard a squirrel get really mad, like when they go, they make this weird noise. It was the mixture between a squirrel and a giant pig. That's what I heard. And It was up in the trees and on the other side of the ravine. And me and Dave, when we heard it, we both looked at each other like, what was that? I don't even know what that was. Like giant, pig squirrel thing. And this was after the wood knock. So I don't know what that noise was. And it was one of the strangest things I've ever heard when I've been out in the woods, because I've never, people hear stuff all the time. And these guys, Shane and Dave, are they're out in the woods Shane's out in the woods almost every day. And he's had a couple of, sightings out at Woodbury, and he can't explain I remember the one thing he said. He was telling me that day about it took off down a fence line, and he said it was a weird color. He said it was not a black bear. There are a few black bears around here, but not a lot. It's not like Tennessee where they're walking out of the church parking lot.
Right.
But he said it took off, and he said it was a brownish color, and it was running on all fours at one point. And then he had another sighting last year. It was by a lake, a very strange thing, and I don't know if it was, but he said it was a similar colored to the other one. So, Woodbury it's a really cool place to go out there. We went out another time, a friend of mine, and we were out doing some, he's got a call blaster, and we were, sending out wounded deer and little, baby, this, that, and the other. And this bobcat came down the hill. I was looking at it with night vision. It ran across the road in front of us first. And so what we did was we went down to the bottom of the hill, and we put that call blaster on the car and see if he could come in. I've never seen a bobcat that big. Usually they're bigger than a house cat, but this one was the size of a dog. And I'm just like, I was using some explicatives. I was like, Dave, did you see how big that freaking bobcat was? That was ridiculous. And so we got down the bottom of the hill, and we put the call blaster on the car, and I was watching that cat. He come down, I could see his heat signature. He come down the hill and then he just stopped. He was a good ways away from us. I mean, he was, 100 yards away, but he stopped and he sat there and he watched us the whole time. Like, he didn't move. Like, we were down there for like 20 minutes and he did not move. He sat there and watched us. And that's what, somebody told me that, like, when you're out in the woods, like, there's almost always a cat somewhere near you and they'll just watch you. And that's just terrifying because, like,
that cat, know they're there.
That cat was, I mean, you don't hear bobcats attacking humans very often, but that cat was pretty. I wouldn't want to run across that cat.
Yeah, I don't want to mess with them.
Bobcats
might be small, but you don't want to mess with them.
They're bigger than people realize they are. I think once you get up close to one.
We need to get down there and go out with you sometime because we're not that far from Ohio.
Yeah,
so
we're not.
It wouldn't take much to get down there and hang out for a day or two.
Yeah, about 4 hours or so, maybe 4 or 5 hours at the most. So yeah, we definitely can.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's awesome. Come down and especially go around Salt Fork, go out to Woodbury. Those areas are really nice. County Road 7, which is the area I told you about earlier, where Don Keating took me out there, and take you out to. Well, we definitely need a pretty beastie vehicle to get out to Mary Stuckham's because the road is. I mean, it looks like it's been bombed. Like they like it that way because that way people can't get out there and
keep people from going out there and get.
But it used to be pretty easy to get to, but it's not anymore.
So, John, tell us about Crowtown Squatchers.
Okay. Crowtown Squatchers was started when we went to Creature Fest one year. Creature Weekend, I'm sorry. It's Creature Weekend, not Creature Fest. Creature Weekend, and we met a young lady. She was there from the Monster Mart in Falk, Arkansas.
Cool.
And I was like, are you like representing Monster Mart? Like, you guys came all the way up from, I mean, that's a haul, come up from Arkansas. She's like, yeah, I'm friends, or I work for the owner and he wanted me to come up. And, that was great. And she was just talking to us about, you guys ought to do that. If you come to these shows, you ought to do it because, you get to meet all the people in the Bigfoot community. And, and I was, I'll be honest, the first time I met Cliff and Dr. Meldrum, I was just spitting over myself. I was just like, and it's funny because now Cliff will walk up to me and I'll, hey, Cliff, how you doing? What's going on? We just talk about regular stuff. I never talk to any of them about Bigfoot stuff anymore. Just, hey, how you doing? But it's still, I'm still starstruck when I talk to some of them. I still get a little goofy about, I'm talking to these guys or I'm talking to those guys and having a good time about it. So, but
speaking of that, you were saying every conference we've been to, everyone's been so polite and friendly. There's never ever been an incident where you get people coming in and being an ass or acting like that. And that's the cool thing about being in this kind of
this community is so cool and close knit. When you get everybody together, it's pretty fun.
Yep.
That's another thing that's kept us in doing this. We've been vendors now this will be going on our 7th year. And the people that we meet, the friends that we've made, and I mean friends, like these aren't just, acquaintances. These are people we talk to, people that they step up and help each other. So outside of the fact that as soon as we see each other at the conferences, we're all hanging together and having fun and, but people I've watched it. The people in the communities, like we have somebody will reach out on Facebook. Hey, so and so's having a hard time. So and so's going through this. So and so's going through that.
Yeah, I've seen that.
The people that they will send money. They will have fundraisers. They will do whatever to help. I mean, in some cases, some of us know each other. Some of us know each other, just by sight or, mild acquaintances. But that doesn't stop everybody from like, hey, we're all human beings and we're all in this together and we all love the same thing. We all have the same interests. and we've all been there. So people step up, and it's been amazing to watch. And like I said, just the friends that we've made in Ohio and Pennsylvania and West Virginia, in Kentucky, because we travel around quite a bit, and we try to get out. I love that area because, it's become, like I said, we've got so many people that we know in those areas now. And to see all the friendships and the way, like you said, the way people treat each other, and it's always, like you said, it's just always so cordial, and everybody's just happy about it. And
yeah,
what can we learn from one another? That's a big part of it too.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're really fun times. I really look forward to them, and meeting people and having people like you come on the show and talk about their experiences and everything like that. So
yep, makes it all worthwhile.
John, we appreciate you coming on and spending time with us today and chatting with us. And we look forward to seeing you at the Ohio conference.
We'll see you at Salt Fork.
Absolutely. It was, thanks for having me on. And it's great talking to you guys. I always like seeing you guys. You're always, super friendly and ready to talk about, all things Bigfoot or any other cryptids as far as I can.
Yeah.
So we'll be out and about. We're going to be doing the inaugural Frogman Festival in early March. They're doing that. That's down around Cincinnati, down in Mason.
Yeah, I've been seeing the advertisements for that on Facebook and stuff. Yeah.
There's so many conferences popping up all over the place. It's just you can't get to all of them, which is cool.
I'm liking it. I'm obviously, as a vendor,
Yeah. That's perfect.
I want more in Ohio, so I don't have to travel as far.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot of choices out there.
Yeah, you got a lot of them.
So
for sure.
All right, man. Well, you take care.
All right, John. We appreciate it, man. Thank you.
You guys have a good one.
We'll see you soon, bud.
Yep.
Okay. Take care.
See ya. I really like John. He's a cool guy,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He's got the Crowtown Squatchers store online if you guys want to check that out on Facebook.
Yeah, go check that out, guys. Help him out.
He's at a lot of events, and he sells a lot of stuff. He's got a lot of cool stuff. He had that Bionic Man and the Bigfoot, Bigfoot.
The Sasquatch,
Remember, did you have those as a kid?
Oh, yeah.
I almost bought it, but I was like, no, I didn't want to spend it.
I know, I wanted to, but I
think next time I see him, I probably will get that Bigfoot if he's got it.
If he has them, I think I will.
Yeah, I need to add that to my collection.
Mm-hmm.
All right, man. Another good show. Appreciate it. Hanging out with you.
Oh, heck yeah. Always fun, man.
All right. Till next time.
Right on. See ya.